welcome to the CORY Morgan Show. I'm going to get right into it. You know, in the mornings I drive, I torture myself with talk radio because the Western Standard hasn't bought a transmitter and a broadcasting license yet, so I still got to listen to the old school talk radio. And here in Calgary, they have what I would call the Alberta Morning Yenta Hour, where you've got Thomas Lukasik's wife and another former classic rock morning show host babbling about inane things for an hour on your morning drive between the news updates that I actually tune in to listen to. But they talked about, and I guess they'd actually gotten Jeff Rath to come in for an early morning interview. And they were saying, yeah, we're going to talk about Jeff Rath in the next segment. I thought, well, that'd be kind of interesting. We'll see what's going on. He's part of the independence movement. And then they brought it on and had a 1-minute clip of Rath, and then they spent 14 minutes explaining why the independence movement is complete trash. Okay, that's fine. But the thing they complained about is said, we keep inviting these guys from the independence movement to come on and they won't come on to our interviews. Good Lord, can you blame them? Either way, I want to torture your ears. Tune into those hens between 9 and 10 on mornings on AM radio. It's getting to be the last days of that sort of broadcast. Independent media is the way things are going and these sorts of things. So thanks for tuning in. I'll get on what I meant to go on about now, and that's food. The food production and distribution system in the Western world, it's an incredible marvel. I mean, with modern advancements, food production's expanded beyond population growth, and it continues to do so, though my teleprompter doesn't. Just give me a moment and I'll catch up with that, hopefully. No, oh, there we go. So, in 1950, let's just look at some of those numbers. North America averaged 40 bushels of corn per acre. Today, those same fields have yields surpassing 180 bushels per acre. Soybean, wheat, canola, other staples, they've had similar rises in yields. Meat, dairy production, those have increased. Specialty crops and meats are also more prevalent than ever. Niche producers of rural retail operations, and they supply farmers markets and local selections of grocery retailers throughout the continent. For internationally produced goods, I mean, the selection's higher and more affordable than ever. Even in the depths of winter, frozen cities in Canada can get fresh fruit and vegetables at reasonable prices. And this is due to an incredible and vast distribution network with rail, trucks, and flights moving refrigerated products. So those overseas goods, frozen transports open to the world as well. It's ironic, though, that the avocado toast crowd tends to be from the urban living socialist set demanding people buy local. I haven't seen any avocados grown in Alberta, but they can bring them to them year-round. And while there's only a small number of major grocery companies, there's still dozens of options for people to choose from if they want to go to smaller outlets. And prices tend to be a little higher at smaller stores due to economies of scale and reduced distribution ability, but they provide an option. Competition among retailers is high, and consumers are well served by the ability to shop around. I mean, for people with pressed for time and with money to burn, they got home delivery of groceries. It's become commonplace. All of this affordable convenience is due to the free market evolution of the food industry. And now the morons within Toronto's City Hall want to undo it all. I mean, from the 1920s until the 1990s, the Soviet Union, they grew in size as well, but their food production and distribution abilities didn't. Government-managed food systems led to chronic food shortages and hunger. Food distribution was used by the state as a weapon, killing millions of Ukrainians in the 30s. Ukraine was one of the highest grain-producing nations in the bloc, but due to putative quotas mandated by Moscow, starvation became rampant. This was convenient for Stalin, who was trying to quell an independence movement in Ukraine. The world saw the dangers of leaving food production in the hands of the government. Socialists today, though, still haven't learned that lesson. By the 1970s, the Soviets had managed to modernize their systems enough that starvation became uncommon, but shortages still persisted, and the selection was terrible. I toured the Soviet Union in the late 80s, and while they were fantastic hosts, it was a few weeks of the worst food I've ever endured. I was presented with a much better layout of food in my hotels than the common Russian was, and it was bad. Today, a generation of spoiled and poorly educated fools gaining power in North America by taking control of municipal governments. They're going after the food distribution. Extremists are being elected by a naive snowflake generation into city halls and administrative offices, and they're being filled with the same twits. In Calgary, they even had a little room for city staff to cry in and play with toys if the stress of public hearings overwhelms them. The offices of municipal halls are infested with these emotionally inept souls. Now in Toronto, by a vote of 21-3, the city council voted to task their bureaucratic team of incompetence with opening 4 government-run grocery stores. They feel the people who can't efficiently fill a pothole or collect garbage can manage to run a business as complicated with as narrow margins as grocery retailing. Food is different than many of the things the government gets into. For example, unlike with bridge construction, food delivery can't withstand just delays of years while city staff try to work their way through their own bureaucratic mire. It will spoil. Another difference is They're entering an already competitive market. If the city-run grocery stores don't deliver services as efficiently as the private stores do, though, people won't use them. The city won't have that monopoly. So why do people think they can succeed? Well, to quote from Hayek, if socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. They honestly believe grocery provision is easy and that retailers are secretly hiding massive profit margins. They don't understand the logistics, competition, or staffing, and these grocery stores will fail catastrophically. The only question is how many millions of tax dollars are going to be sunken into these poorly run, union-dominated storefronts, suffering from a lack of selection due to incompetent management before they do finally get shut down. This dip into Soviet-style food distribution in Toronto is going to serve as yet another working example of why governments must stay out of services private enterprise already does well enough. People with common sense will see the lessons here. Socialists, though, never will. So don't forget to vote wisely in your next municipal election, guys, or maybe you'll see grocery stores being run by Gondek's old crew in Calgary soon. All right, well, what else is going on out there, Dave?
Hello, comrade.
Hey, comrade, very good. Oh, I'm looking forward to that potato and black bread diet.
Oh, it'll be wonderful. So, April Fool's Day, did you get caught by anything?
I didn't get caught by any of them. No, most of them were, I mean, there's some creative ones out there, but I was on guard for it this year. I've been caught before, prior years.
Yeah, ours was pretty good. We got people by the hundreds.
It's what Derek was saying. Yeah, the comments are 50-50 on people who forgot the
believed it. Yeah, it was still up on the site. You can go read it if you want. Liberals thinking about taking God out of Canada.
Well,
wouldn't surprise you.
It wouldn't. I mean, the world's gone so crazy that it's hard to make something that people would not believe anymore.
I know. It's crazy. Speaking of unbelievable, the NDP convention on the weekend, that was weird.
Oh, boy. And I'm looking forward to talking with Alex about that. He's going to come on. He was putting up great clips from it. But, oh my Lord, what a collection of lunatics.
We are now being mocked around the world because of it. Fox, Greg Guttenfeld last night mocked us, as did all the way to Australia. Sky News says we're not a real country anymore down in Australia. And you know what? It's hard to argue after seeing that.
Really, people had to watch that twice. I would think and wonder, is this a premature April Fool's joke or a Portlandia series expansion or something? And no, these were real, serious in their world people.
Yes, yes. Another reason you'll be happy to be living out near Priddis. Calgary property taxes, 8.1%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit high for my liking. It was only 1.2%, and then the province got its filthy hands in there on the education, and I think it was the largest tax increase in for their part in history.
Yeah, to be fair on those things, don't get on the city's case this time. Nope. It usually is the city, but no, this is bad governance on the part of the province. Be sure to send your emails that way.
Yeah, of course, it's people wanting more schools and teachers aides. It's got to be paid for, right?
Oh, sure. But there's always room to cut spending.
There's always
you got the will for it
somewhere. So. There was some good news today on Maya Gabola. She's a little girl who was shot in the head at Tumler Ridge. Just awful injuries she suffered. She's being moved out of ICU for the first time now and into recovery. And there was talk of maybe moving to Los Angeles. Dana White, the head of the UFC, said he'd pay for her care there at a top brain rehabilitation institute. Pierre Poilievre has injected some rare common sense into the federal political scene by saying he's going to cancel the $90 billion high-speed rail boondoggle if he gets elected. And a boondoggle it will be.
Oh, nice. Just we know every one of these projects around the world never stays within budget. And I mean, even the budgeted number they're talking about is outrageous.
Yes, it is outrageous. And 4:24 this afternoon, Corey. Tune in as Artemis 2, weather permitting, set to go to the moon. First time in more than half a century that we've headed that way. So, yeah. I mean, you probably can't even remember the first time, can you?
Well, the first moon landing was prior to my birth.
Yes.
But
it was right around my birth, so I don't remember much of it, but I'll be excitedly watching it today.
Yeah, so I like this stuff. It's good that they're expanding that space race a little again.
Yeah, and we've got a Canadian on board, too, which makes it all the more watchable. So,
yeah,
good luck to them.
Yeah, it should be interesting. And again, I just hope it goes safely. I mean, one thing I do remember, of course, was the disaster in the 80s and the end of the shuttle program. And nobody needs to watch that on live TV again.
Nope, exactly right. So good luck.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I hope Oh.
I've forgotten something.
What do you?
The most important thing.
Uh-huh.
Just before coming in here, I launched a story from our Jackson Loy,
Oh, yes.
an exclusive investigation on how easy it is to get doctor's notes in Alberta now. They've got these dial a doctor, and he went about to try and see how easy it was to get 2 weeks off. And it's no problem. You just phone up these doctors, say that you're a little stressed, and they'll say, well, we can give you 2 weeks for $35, or we can give you 3 weeks for $55, and just as simple as can be. And Jackson was even prescribed sleeping pills, not over the counter stuff, but the real heavy addictive stuff. And he, all he said was, "I'm having trouble sleeping these days," and bang, prescription. Oh, there's another $55 you owe us.
Yeah.
So it's that story's up there now. It's a very important issue. It's a growing problem, not only in Alberta, but I think across Canada.
Yeah, I read that actually just before the show got going because it popped up just as I was waiting and prepping, and they even give volume discounts if you want to.
Yes.
Preemptively say, I'm going to be sick next week and the week after too. So, we'll just buy 3 weeks of sick notes off of you at a volume discount. That's insane.
It is insane. Just in time for me to go away for a few days. But
Yeah.
I have a note for it, so we're okay.
Okay, well, enjoy that trip. I'll envy you seeing green grass and
I know. It's looking forward
blossoms
to
and
it. Cherry
things.
blossoms. It's all good.
Okay, well, thank you for the update. Enjoy the time with the
We'll see you
grandkid,
next
and
week.
we'll see you next week. See the rest of the updates from your trip, maybe.
You bet.
Right on. Thanks. That is our news editor, Dave Naylor. And yes, lots going on. That was a great piece out of Jackson. It really was. Check out the site. Of course, once you're done with the show, it'll be right up top there. He did that work on it, doing the dialing and so on. And the reason Jackson can do that, the reason Dave can afford to take 3 precious days away from here is because you guys have been subscribing. So check it out, westernstandard.news/subscription, $100 for a year. Speaking of volume discounts, $10 for a month. It's well worth it. Get past that paywall, help support our independent media. And, a commenter, CB Fixes All, says, so a new phone a dealer, this country's going down the toilet fast, and that's really a concern because I like these initiatives. Our healthcare system right now, though, is overwhelmed. It's stretched. And having some of the things that could be done, perhaps, over the phone or over the internet or ways like that, if we could ease some of the pressure, whereas people don't feel they have to always go to an emergency room or to a clinic or a doctor's office, it could really take pressure off the bulk of the system. But when we get these pill pushers abusing it like this quickly, this could kill those sorts of initiatives right out of the gate. And it's terrible. And I mean, the addiction epidemic is huge. It's massive. And Monty Ghosh is an addictions doctor. He was quoted in that article too. Jackson spoke with him. Something I saw, I don't know if I talked much about that, when I worked out in the eastern states, and I was working out by Ohio and across the river from West Virginia, Steubenville area. Either way, I got a thorn when I was using a chainsaw. Drove really deep, a huge long thing into my arm. And you could feel it under there, and I was worried about it. So I hit a doctor in West Virginia. And this clinic, and I just wanted to get it looked at, maybe get it removed or pulled out or something. And the doctor comes in, and the first thing he asked me is, what's your pain level on 1 to 10? I said, I don't know. It's not that bad, 2 or 3. I'm just worried about this thing. And he looks around it and everything. Well, you need to see an orthopedic surgeon to deal with that. It's beyond what we can do here. What's your pain level, 1 to 10 again? I said, don't worry, it's fine. And he just left. And then while I was filling out the paperwork, because I had insurance and everything, I was working in the States, I saw people coming and going. And then I realized it. They're all coming and they're leaving with a script. This doctor was just writing out oxy prescriptions, hand over fist. He was a pill pusher. This was, 15 years ago, 12 years ago. This was the beginning of the addiction epidemic we're enjoying today. And it started with medical professionals. So, look, I think there's good ideas on trying to have phone and internet means to access medical information, but we can't let it turn into what happened down there. And unfortunately, it is a very important piece that Jackson exposed. That's what's already happening here. Unfortunately, there's some opportunistic doctors who are just going to turn this into pill factories. All right, let's get on to something a little lighter and a little darker at the same time. Some of the NDP convention news. Alex Zoltan, our BC fellow out there, just put out brilliant clips of it all weekend. And I mean, it was comedy that wrote itself. Plus, we'll get some updates because BC's, boy, they got some really interesting politics getting rolling there. And Alex has been covering it excellently. So let's bring him in for the first time on my show. Alex Zoltan, our man on the ground in BC. Hey, how's it going?
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's about time to get you on here. So I mean, where do we begin? They streamed it. Maybe the NDP will stop streaming conventions in the future. Uh, I appreciate your taking it upon yourself to tune in and bring out those show highlights for us. What inspired you to do that?
Well, I should give a shout out to my Western Standard colleague, Waleed Tamtam. I believe he's in Brazil, and he messaged me on Saturday and said, "Are you watching this NDP convention?" And I said, "No, should I be?" And he says, "Absolutely. This is your bread and butter." So, so I tuned in, and the insanity just was right away. It was quite exceptional. I feel like I need to call one of those doctors in Alberta to get a sick note for 2 weeks after covering it.
There you go. Well, you know the sick day plan for the Standard. So, I mean, you might get the time off, but you're going to have to do some tap dancing on the corner or something to get some money for it. But I, I mean, I don't know where to begin with the weirdness. Explain the equity cards. What was this concept?
So the equity card concept, as I understand it, according to the NDP's bylaws and constitution, they identify 5 equity-seeking groups. So that would be LGBTQ, quote unquote, people, visible minorities, Indigenous folks, women, who are not differentiated from trans women, and predicated on the belief that trans women are women, and disabled individuals. So there were color-coded cards for each of these different groups. There was a resolution passed on day one that only the gender equity cards would allow people to bump ahead of the line. And this was for points of privilege, points of information during the resolution process. It was later amended on day 3 to expand the equity card system because there were so many disagreements about which cards held priority over others.
So they built their victimhood hierarchy. I think there was a point system attached to it as well. And they go into race and disability, and then the cognitive dissonance is just astounding. Like, they obviously don't understand how deeply into discrimination they actually sunk in their pretzel-like efforts to try not to discriminate.
Oh, absolutely. And then there was also an issue of intersectionality, if you accept that phrase, where if you're a Black woman, do you get to go ahead of the line as opposed to somebody who is a white woman? Or if you're a trans-identifying woman who is biologically male, does that give you priority over a biological female? And none of these details were really hammered out very well, which I think was one of the reasons for a lot of the conflict.
Well, and just watching them again, that's what was so comical, was how seriously they're taking this with each other, how upset they were getting, and that a very bizarre chairperson, I mean, at one point even choked on using the word straight accidentally when talking about a lineup, not a sexual orientation, but to stand in line and realize I shouldn't even use that word, she thought.
Yeah, she triggered herself.
Triggered herself. Oh, I could go into a bad line of jokes there. So what else was accomplished at this gathering aside from selecting Avi Lewis as their leader? Were there some policy things or other issues addressed? Or
Not really. A lot of the resolutions had to do, for instance, they had one resolution where they wanted to expand government funding of media. That's no surprise, given that they're basically the Socialist Party of Canada. There were a few other resolutions, such as increasing the amount of hybrid availability for the next convention, which they expect to be in 2 years. I don't know if they can afford it, though, because they're not. They no longer have official party status, and based off of the financials of the party, they're in pretty dire straits. It was a 6-month leadership race, which I found interesting because that's longer than we take to find the prime minister. It's longer than our federal elections last. So yeah, it was a real gauntlet, and nobody paid attention to it until the convention. I almost feel bad because I feel like I put the NDP back on the map.
Well, it certainly did, but I don't know if it was in a good way. I mean, normally a leadership race, a change, it would lead to a bit of a bounce, a sympathetic portion of support for a little while. But I mean, they've turned themselves into a laughingstock after this. I mean, perhaps Avi will find his feet and try to find a rational course to build this party, but he's not off to a good start.
No, it's not a good start at all. And it definitely is indicative of a very radical leftward shift for the NDP. I feel like Harrison Faulkner asked Pierre Poilievre about the convention yesterday, and I think that Pierre Poilievre had a bit of a missed opportunity on the question because he basically said, yeah, they're ridiculous. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But what I think he might have said that would have been beneficial to the Conservative Party of Canada is said, there's a lot of good working class people at that convention who may feel politically homeless now. They should know that they have a home with the Conservative Party of Canada, because there were. I mean, I just mostly showed all the freaks, but there were normal people there too, and they probably do feel rather politically homeless now because they aren't really a working class party anymore. They're an extreme radical left party.
Yeah, I mean the old lunchbox carrying union members, the trade unions, those ones that used to be the core of the NDP, and the Conservatives actually took kind of a bite out of that demographic already in the last election. I suspect, as you said, it's a missed opportunity, but they've got a chance to take a much bigger bite of that now, or the Liberals as well, because it's just a little too much for them. Uh, Either way, I just have to say I appreciate you putting those tweets out as the weekend went, and grabbing those highlight clips. I imagine there must have been a few lucid moments that just weren't as exciting or funny to put out there for folks.
Not that many.
So something you've been watching though as well, and more importantly and closely, and it's in your realm there though, is the leadership for the BC Conservative Party right now. And nationally is not making big news, but it is a big deal. This is very much potentially the government in waiting in British Columbia. How's that race been developing so far?
I would say that it's been developing rather unpredictably. So I would say it's a 5-horse race currently. An Angus Reid poll just came out today, and it showed that the BC Conservatives as a party are ranking just above the NDP. So whoever wins this race could very likely be the next premier of the province.
Yeah. So, but I mean, if they could just get over themselves, there's nothing Conservatives love more than turning their guns against themselves. I mean, it was quite an incredible story to watch, the rise and fall of Rested, from a battle, a breakaway, assuming the leadership of a party that really was just back in the weeds with single digit support, to coming within a hair's breadth of winning an election in an upset, to being tossed out by his own membership, essentially, only, a little while later. Do you think that this race might lead to a sense of unity? Is there a chance that they'll get it together with a leader? Because when you're talking about a 5-horse race, the problem is one horse wins and the other 4 start new parties.
I completely agree. I think that the leadership race is going to be the easy part. The hard part is going to be uniting the caucus and as well the base. One BC is also a bit of a interesting potential mix up to the whole thing. They've recently aligned themselves with Yuri Fulmer, who I frankly consider to be a bit of a fringe candidate from the outset, but that could change things significantly as well.
Yeah, so the Conservative split or issues could still surface out of this potentially. What is the timeline for their race? It's still kind of got a ways to go, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I believe that the race should be finished May 30th. But just today, the Peter Millibar campaign, which is ranking number 1 according to the poll that he commissioned, they asked for an extension because they're not convinced that the current system, the membership system, is on the up and up. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch as well.
Yeah, well, again, that's unfortunate. I mean, especially if you get a front runner. I mean, if they're, self-perceived front runner, I don't know, but if they're considering cracks within the system, that's when you already see that if a person doesn't win, the complaints are going to come claiming it was rigged, and you get the darn split. Like I would say arguably, and that's my, I'm an opinion guy. You're trying to cover things in a balanced way, but I think Eby is currently the worst premier in the entire country. He's definitely weak. I mean, there's an opportunity to unseat this man. Again, if the Conservatives could just get their own crap together.
I would agree. Eby is currently ranking very, very low in the polls. He's the least popular premier in over a decade, according to recent data on the popularity of the BC government. The issue that you have in BC is that conservatism in BC is very complex and unique, in the sense that it's a patchwork of different brands of conservatism. Especially in northern BC and also in the Kootenays and the Okanagan, it's more of a libertarian type conservatism, and it's actually quite progressive. And so it's such a complex patchwork in terms of the system. And then also the majority of the province, for better or worse, lives in Vancouver or Vancouver Island, where people are very, very liberal. And so it's going to be an uphill climb for whoever becomes the leader in that sense.
Yeah, so Lower Mainland BC has changed a lot since the 90s. I mean, it's been the same and it's changed. I mean, I remember it though as being volatile. You couldn't take any writing for granted in the past federally. I remember there used to be like a Reform Party member of Parliament to be the most conservative of conservative types, and right next door they'd have an NDP member of Parliament, and then there'd be a Liberal one, and they would switch too. I mean that could flip from a Reform seat to an NDP seat. Is it more solidly Liberal now though? Are there some swing, communities left in the Lower Mainland?
Absolutely. I mean, places like Richmond have become quite conservative, and I think that's in reaction to a lot of the BC NDP's safe supply legislation. A lot of newer immigrants tend to be more conservative, ironically. And so that is also working against the BC NDP. It'll be a very, very interesting election. Um, I think a lot of it depends on who the leader of the BC Conservative Party is and whether or not they can unite the base around a common set of ideals and principles.
Mm-hmm. So, Abby, getting back to common sense and principles, I'll kind of pivot again back to the federal NDP, just since you kind of mentioned that too. How has David Eby responded to that federal race yet? And I mean, I know other NDP leaders provincially are running for the doorways to distance themselves from Avi Lewis and his group. Has Eby been doing that? Because I mean, that could be a handicap for him too.
Oh, absolutely. It puts him between a rock and a hard place because the federal NDP is just so far left that it doesn't even align with the BC NDP anymore, who are largely considered the most progressive wackos in the entire country. And so the issue was broached yesterday in the legislature. Aurelia Warbus, who's a conservative BC member of the legislature, asked whether or not the BC NDP was prepared to denounce Abby Lewis's comments that LNG is fentanyl for the environment. It's just an insane statement, and they were not. So it appears as though the BC NDP is not prepared to take a step back from the federal NDP, and I guess that'll be a development that we'll have to follow closely as things progress.
Yeah, well, I imagine the conservative leaders there will make sure to keep hammering that tie with them, and that's what's happening in Alberta already. Premier Smith is tying the head and inchie to that federal party and just beating him over the head with it. And there's not much he can do because they're constitutionally tied at the hip. So that'll happen in BC as well, I imagine, unless he picks a side. Before I let you go, there's so much to cover, and the time's kind of gone fast. What else are you covering in BC, though? I mean, it's a huge chunk of Western Canada that doesn't get reported on nearly enough, and I'm glad you're out there covering stuff.
Yeah, mostly what I'm covering is what's happening in the legislature. It's a very animated place at the moment. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of heckling. One of the conservative members was arrested last week on domestic violence charges. So that's also become a major talking point in the legislature. I'm not really sure why, because it's not really relevant to governing. But that's been an interesting development, along with the BC conservative race, as we've addressed. And there's also some very interesting court cases occurring as well. There's the one, the Drug User Liberation Front. That one will have national implications when the result comes in. And that's a charter challenge for two individuals who have been convicted on 3 charges for trafficking heroin, cocaine, and crystal meth. And they're challenging it under the charter, saying that it deprives them of their right to life, liberty, and the security of person, as well as freedom of discrimination on the basis of disability, on the notion that extreme substance abuse is actually a disability in Canada.
Yeah, but they're the facilitators of the guys who were on the abuse. And you'd think you could throw that out of court, but we know our judges, we can't trust them.
Oh, yeah. And that court case is probably costing taxpayers millions. I think it's going to be extended past FIFA, which is another event that we're covering closely at the Western Standard, because I imagine that the Vancouver Police Department and the BC NDP are doing their best to clear the downtown east side of all the homeless people for a couple of weeks, the same way that they did during the Olympics in 2010.
Well, and the East Hastings, downtown east side Vancouver, I mean, that's been a nightmare since the 70s. I don't know where and how they're going to manage to shield that. Maybe they'll detour roads just so people don't pass through that area for a little while, because that's a whole, well, we could do a whole show segment on that area alone. So when does that FIFA start? I mean, that's a huge event. It's going to be something else.
I'll be honest, I'm not a soccer fan, so I don't have it put on my calendar, but I'm pretty sure it's in a couple of months.
Okay.
And during the 2010 Olympics, it was quite remarkable. I was attending UBC at the time, and you could walk downtown east side, Hastings Street, and not see a single homeless person. Which is the only time I've ever seen that in my lifetime. I grew up down there. I've been here for decades. And so I assume what I've heard through the grapevine is that they just put people on a bus and they send them to Chilliwack for a couple of weeks. They maybe give them a hotel or something.
Well, as long as they don't send them to Alberta. Just a warning for you. Our news editor, Dave Naylor, is a hardcore soccer football fan. So he'll be expecting you to be watching some of the happenings on with. I mean, there's more to that event than just the matches themselves, anyways. I mean, the international spotlight, the activities, the protests, or things like the city will do to try and put a better light on things. I imagine you'll be watching closely to see what kind of stories emerge from that.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll get a media pass and go check it out and pretend I'm a soccer fan for a few days.
Why not? I mean, you just gotta get drunk and if somebody taps you too hard, fall down and fake an injury, and you've got it down.
I'm more than qualified for all those things.
Right on. Okay. Well, before I let you go, we people will find your stuff on the westernstandard.news, but where else are you online and where they can find your work and your stuff?
Yep, Western Standard, as you had mentioned just before I came on, encourage everybody to get a subscription and support them. And I'm also on X, and I post every day. And so.
Excellent. Well, a belated welcome to the Western Standard family. I loved your work on X and your writings so far. Looking forward to seeing more coming out of BC as you cover stuff for us out there, Alex.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So one more time, guys. Yeah, look him up, Alex Zoltan. I mean, we really filling that, BC void and getting that news out there. It's a part of the West, and it's an interesting part of the West. There's a commenter. Hi, Alex, from somebody. Theo said they met in Squamish. There we go. And it's just some of the most exciting politics in Canada tends to come out of BC. The lunacy of the NDP convention that was in Winnipeg. But don't worry, many, many, many of those delegates, including that weird person, was out of British Columbia. I mean, they got a lot of sane people in BC too. They got a lot of great people in BC, and that's part of what makes it that interesting combination. Not just geographically, as Alex was saying, interior BC, northern BC, they're very, very different than lower mainland BC. But even within lower mainland BC, it's a very mixed demographic and economy and culture, you name it. It's all there. So, Alex will have his hands full covering everything that's going on there. So I was talking at an event last night about this. I kind of covered this. So my apologies to some of the folks who might be watching who were in attendance. I'm just going to rehash some of that because I did start the speech out by making fun of the NDP gong show. And again, if people haven't seen some of those clips, you really should. It's hilarious until you realize these people are serious. And how absurd these people are. And it makes for easy low-hanging fruit to poke at. But then I turn it to point to the other reality in that they aren't harmless. Okay? That woman who was chairing it, her name is Adrienne Smith, and she's a lawyer out in British Columbia. She worked to defund a rape support center because that rape support center wouldn't let women into it. So women who have been sexually assaulted, abused, needed somewhere to hide, somewhere to feel safe, somewhere to recover, somewhere where they can, again, just deal with what's happened. This nutcase felt that they should have to have a bunk next to them with men because she's really that nuts. That because the guy said he's a woman, you can put that guy into a rape center. And we've seen this with women's prisons in the States. There was a trans man impregnated a bunch of women in it. There's other cases, again, in shelters where some trans, and not every trans person is a sexual predator, but some are. And they've got the plumbing. And they don't belong in a rape shelter. But this woman, this lawyer, helped defund that center because they wouldn't allow people with peckers into a woman's sexual assault center. That's how crazy these people are, and they get their way. She's won Human Rights Commission's challenges, $30,000 for a small business because they fired somebody who later claimed they were non-binary and that was the reason for it. Plus, those Fruit Loops and lunatics that you saw getting up to the microphone with their equity cards and all of their ridiculousness. Where do you think they get the money to travel as delegates to somewhere like Winnipeg and do these things? Well, guess what? They're in your teachers' lounges, guys. They're teaching your kids. That's one of the main sources of these nutcases. They're working in the civil service. They're working in municipal offices. They're working in federal government offices. That's where these people go. They get their liberal arts degrees. They're crazy. They can barely maintain their jobs as baristas for too long. They finally either get a government job or upgrade to a teaching certificate and move into there. And then they spread that gross, weird ideology everywhere they can, whether it's through a government job or even more concerning as teachers. As I said, the NDP, the federal NDP, have lost the union vote. They've lost the trade union vote. They've lost their traditional labor vote. But they still have the purple-haired teachers union vote. Those nutcases that are dominating the monopoly, almost paramonopoly system of our education system. So here's a good news story. For people in Alberta, if you've looked at Bill 25, the Premier Smith just dropped, and it's great. It actually takes the battle back at the unions in the classrooms. And that's a bill in Alberta that is going to regulate and depoliticize and ban these teachers from bringing their ideological crap into the classrooms. It's going to make it so that the only flags allowed to be flown at schools are the Canadian flag, the provincial flag, and I believe there was some exception for a French Albertan flag or something like that. No more rainbow asterisk, whatever, flag of the week it is anymore. No more Palestinian flags. No more of that crap. No more teachers yelling at kids who refuse to go out and take part in a pride thing like we saw in Alberta a little while back. A child, was a Muslim one, which is some of the irony, was berated by a teacher in front of the rest of the class and told that you don't belong here. Can you imagine if it's been anybody else telling a young Muslim kid that they don't belong here? And that was recorded, but this was a teacher, so somehow it was okay because the kid didn't want to march out and take part in the pride thing. I don't have a problem with pride stuff, but I have a problem with our bloody schools imposing it because they go above and beyond and they push that extreme ideology like we saw from the nut bars at the NDP convention. We're not talking about minor stuff on accepting somebody for being who they are and all that fluffy things. These are the crazies. And Smith is cutting them down at the knees and saying that's enough. You stick to the curriculum or you're bloody fired. You're out of here. And already I was listening again, as I said, I heard myself on talk radio, but some of them, oh my Lord, we already have a teacher shortage and they're going to leave. No, they aren't. No, they aren't. They're qualified to do anything else. It's going to pay them that well. And they aren't willing to do the work that would pay them that well. What are they going to go to the oil field? Sorry, you don't get 3 months off a year with pay in the oil field, a massive pension like that. Every long weekend off, every second Friday off, Arbor Day off, you name it. You don't get that. You guys have got a good gig. They're not going to leave. Some might, and if they do, those will be the worst of the loons anyways. Get the hell out. And I'm certain there's some silent teachers in other provinces who are saying, you know what? I would like to move to Alberta and teach there because it's one of the highest paid teaching jurisdictions in Canada. And I can ply my trade that I was drawn to and that very important job and actually teach kids how to learn. Use critical thinking, math as well, science, arts, not distracting them with their political ideology and garbage. The courage, I can't say enough, of Smith to take this on because we've known about this. Teachers' unions have been a problem throughout all of North America, from California to Alberta to Ontario. Those unions have slithered in and taken over, and they're spreading their crap to kids rather than teaching them anymore. And I know there's thousands of great teachers in there, and they're stuck going with the flow. You don't speak up in that union environment, or you do get drummed out because they're closed shops. The next thing I want to see is right to work legislation. But they're not going to be able to pull that crap much longer. And hey, guys, welcome to the cell phone world. And I know they've banned cell phones from a lot of classes and things like that. But as we've already seen, you guys are always under scrutiny. So you're going to get recorded. Some kids got that phone hidden down below. If that teacher starts on an ideological diatribe, don't worry. It's going to end up on YouTube and you're going to get fired, as you should. Stick to your job, you guys. You got a good gig and you got an important gig. And when you do it right, we do value it. We really do. And I know it's not always easy taking care of somebody else's little bastard hellions. Not every kid is good. I put teachers through a lot of misery when I went through school. And some of the stuff I did, I do apologize retroactively to those poor teachers who I gave gray hair as the nasty student I was. They put up with a lot of junk. They put up with a lot of crap from parents. They put up with a lot of crap from people like me. But that's part of why they're well compensated. That's part of why it's a calling rather than a regular job. And enough complaining. Just get back to teaching again. That's all people want. And I think there's a whole lot of teachers again. They're already in there and they're thankful Bill 25 is coming down. They won't put their hand up and say it because the union crowd around them won't let them. But they're happy to see this. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm so happy because so many politicians just scurry away in terror when it comes to taking on the teachers union. They really do. They just don't want to. They just throw money at it and back off. And that isn't happening this time. Premier Smith's not backing off. In fact, she brought on the attack. She didn't just defend us against the latest crap out of the union. She brought the battle back to them and some of the nutty school boards and other folks involved in these things. So this is a great development. To turn that back around, I've seen some of those discussions, some of the folks who keep screaming that Premier Smith should take on an independent stance. This ties together in a way. Look, she's got enough on her plate. She's been defending the ability to have a referendum for independence. The independence movement has got enough. That's all they need out of her. Let Premier Smith keep doing what she's doing because she's doing some great stuff over there. Don't let her dive into the mire of the independence movement. That's not her place. That's not her mandate. She doesn't need to. So quit pushing on that and stick to the independence movement itself. And let Premier Smith start making Alberta the better place it should be. Think about that. The more moves she does like this that drive out the real Fruit Loops, the real lunatics, and makes them leave, that handful of teachers who really will pack their bags, take their purple hair, and get the hell out of here. Good. That's fewer people who are going to vote no in the upcoming referendum, isn't it? And maybe some of those teachers who will move to Alberta to get into an environment where they can actually teach again rather than being stuck with the ideological crap they've been forced to feed. Those are the yes voters. Don't worry. Premier Smith is doing the job she's there to do. And she's doing a good one. Not perfect. None of them are. And God knows she's made mistakes. But hey, it's awesomeness. Bill 25 is great. And, the teachers don't like it. Sucks to be you. But yes, the independence has reached the signature bar. That's been a lot of the discussion lately. It's interesting. So they needed 178,000 signatures. I've listened to some interviews. They think there's more signatures that are out, and there's some that haven't been counted, and there's cases and cases that haven't been counted. They figure it's probably more like perhaps 250, 240,000. They should safely be beyond there. Tactically, I don't know why they released that. I think part of it was pressure. It seemed like every few days there was a story from Legacy Media or Dwayne Brad or somebody be coming along saying, look at this, they're on the ropes, they're never going to pass it. I mean, we saw news stories the other day saying, oh my Lord, they're having problems. The rural addresses on driver's licenses are making it difficult and they can't get the petitions done. And I think maybe it frustrated them because they're getting calls from people saying, are we close? Are we getting there? What's going on? Are we not going to make it? There's still a month to go. So they felt we got to let people know that the bar has been passed. Unfortunately. And I know there's others who are encouraging petitioners to stay out there and keep pushing and keep petitioning and keep showing a presence. And a lot will, but a lot won't now. I mean, it's hard work. It's a lot of trouble. It's a lot of time. And they're going to take their foot off the gas for a bit now because they know they've passed the bar. And that's unfortunate because this campaign, if a person's looking to get a good vote or even possibly a winning vote in October, means that there's got to have to be campaigning from today until voting day. You can't afford to take your foot off the gas. The petitioning gave a form of campaigning working towards that. But either way, it has been announced. Look, there's going to be a referendum this fall. There's going to be. I had some other people panicking because they're bringing in legislation that's talking about how you won't be able to hold a referendum within a certain period of time from a set election date and stuff like that. Fine, but don't worry. They already said clear as day, these active petitions currently are exempted from that law. They're not going to stop the referendum. So many people keep thinking Smith wants to block the referendum. If she wanted to do so, she could have done it 6 months ago easily. Is she going to vote yes? I don't know. But she wants this thing to be held, and it has to be now. Lukasik got his hundreds of thousands of signatures wanting the question on a ballot. Stay Free Alberta's gotten hundreds of thousands of signatures. It's time to have it out. You can't leave that question hanging in the air anymore, and everybody knows it. Premier Smith knows it too. It's going to a vote this fall. It's going to be one hell of a political year in Alberta, in Canada. One of the most exciting and interesting ones we've ever seen. We've never had a referendum in the West before. Never. So it's going to be something else. Oh, one more thing before I let you go. Gun grab Gary there is talking about. So yes, the deadline is passed for people to voluntarily let their declare their firearms and so on. And they announced 47,000 have been declared across Canada after 2 months of the program. That represents 2% of all the guns prohibited. And yes, Alberta and Saskatchewan refuse to cooperate. Our police forces won't do it. They're not going to get this done. I'm just saying, don't cooperate, guys. Don't break laws. Just if you don't have them, you don't have them. Never give up your firearms or your property in general. All right, guys, that's my time for today. Tune in to The Pipeline. A little later, we're going to break down some more issues. Again, make sure to watch Nigel's show, some of the stuff Leah does, and others. Subscribe to The Standard, support independent media, hit the like and share and all that good stuff, because that's how we can get the word out there. And keep tuning in. This is how we will beat legacy media and their associated unions. Have a good one, guys. Thanks.